reflect the views of USA Today or its affiliates.
Good morning. Welcome to Connecting America on the USA Today streaming channels. I'm Jim Rosenfield. We've got Dave Briggs and Kieran Chetry here at the Sunrise Diner, Roselle Park, New Jersey. Cheers, everyone.
Happy Thursday.
Almost Friday.
I know how she takes her coffee, but you? I'm black.
Lots of cream, lots of sugar.
There's a little oat milk in here.
Oh, fancy.
From home.
Okay.
Nice.
But I'll take
done.
cream, whatever. Just make sure there's coffee
Let
in
it
there.
here.
Right. A lot going on today. We need to catch up with. Start out in Los Angeles, where LA County, they're pushing back against those federal immigration raids with an emergency declaration now of its own. That's so they can give financial aid to people affected by the federal ICE raids. Meanwhile, things taking a turn in Chicago this week. Take a look at this. Clashes now between ICE agents and residents there. There was a car chase, a crash, and as you see, some tear gas deployed. We're going to have a live report from Chicago coming up later in the show. Kieran?
President Trump is confirming reports that he signed off on the CIA conducting covert operations in Venezuela. It's a continuing crackdown after the U.S. military conducted several ops since the summer to destroy ships suspected of carrying drugs off the coast of Venezuela. We're going to have more on why he did it and what the latest is in a few minutes.
And we'll introduce you to a military mom of a 5-year-old girl with autism who has no access to essential services because of the government shutdown, which continues to drag on, and Kieran shows no end in sight.
No, everyone's digging their heels in. It's day 16 of the U.S. government shutdown, and a federal judge has temporarily blocked the Trump administration from firing furloughed workers. The order came just days after the administration issued reduction in force notifications known as RIFs to more than 4,000 federal workers. A coalition of unions argued that any planned layoffs during the shutdown are both illegal and politically motivated. The federal judge from California who issued this ruling cited comments by Trump and White House budget director that indicated the layoffs were related to programs favored by Democrats.
We want to dive into the legal process here and the possible outcomes. We're going to be joined by Deborah D'Agostino. She's a founding partner at the Federal Practice Group. She represents federal workers in employment cases. Deborah, thanks for being here this morning.
Yeah, good morning. Glad to be with you.
So glad you can maybe explain what the federal judge's order says.
Sure. So what the federal judge ordered is a temporary restraining order. So basically that halts the agencies from going forward with any RIFs that they started and proposed last week. So we did see, I think it was about 4,000 federal employees did get RIF notices last week, and those are all going to be on hold while this temporary restraining order is in place.
So what is the appeals process? Obviously, the Trump administration is going to try to fight this. What do they do moving forward?
We do expect that the Trump administration will likely go to the Ninth Circuit, which is the appeals court there on the West Coast, to seek to stay the TRO. And we'll have to see what the Ninth Circuit does. But we also suspect that either party will then appeal that to the Supreme Court, seeking emergency relief from the Supreme Court. So far, the Supreme Court has allowed the administration to move forward with RIFs. This is different, though. I mean, this is RIFs during a shutdown based on the shutdown. So this is something we've never seen before. So I do think it's far different than the early RIFs we saw back this spring.
Unions say these layoffs are politically motivated. How do the president's own words factor into this case?
Well, so the president has said that these RIFs are to target Democrat programs. And he's used the actual term Democrat over and over with regard to who is getting RIFed, which is very different than if an agency is restructuring and downsizing a program, or even if Congress had passed a budget eliminating certain programs, right? I mean, Congress can do that. If they ever get it together to actually pass a budget or a continuing resolution, they could say, we're going to eliminate this program or that program. But that is different than President Trump getting out there and saying, we're going to RIF people who work for Democrat programs.
So the White House has called some of these cuts hypothetical, even as notices are going out. Could that be a strategic move, a sign maybe they're testing the limits of presidential power here?
Well, they do have to give federal employees 60 days notice before they can actually separate them. But we've also seen several hundred employees recalled back to work. I think what we've seen over and over with these RIFs is that they're being done in such a hasty and messy manner that it's becoming very apparent that, folks who need to be doing their jobs are getting RIF notices, and those folks are getting called back to do the work that our country needs them to do.
Deborah D'Agostino with the Federal Practice Group, thank you so much for being here to weigh in on what these federal workers may or may not be facing. We appreciate it.
I always like to update the audience on what the betting markets are saying about the shutdown. It is day 16. The betting markets have the odds. This is Kalshi.com at 39 days. That is the overwhelming sentiment of Americans that are betting on this based on not just their gut feelings, but their connections and their read of the situation.
That'd be
the longest ever.
Yeah.
Which was 35 days in 2018 into 2019. And I don't disagree. We could be looking at Thanksgiving, guys.
Yeah, I owe you money, I guess, because I thought it was going to be under 2 weeks.
Oh,
under
man.
2 weeks. But
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was going to be about 11 to 12 days. That's right.
Okay.
It's always sunny.
We're beyond that.
It's always sunny at Sunrise Diner.
Yeah, let us know what you think. Meanwhile, Hamas says it has now returned the last of the remains of hostages it can locate and recover. It handed over 2 coffins to the Red Cross yesterday. According to the terms of the ceasefire, the fighting between Israel and Hamas would stop, and Hamas would return all hostages, both living and dead. Hamas freed 20 living captives Monday, and the remains of 8 people were handed over this week.
Meantime, the ceasefire may have stopped the fighting between Israel and Hamas, but inside of Gaza, a different kind of violence is taking hold. There was video that we first showed you yesterday of masked gunmen seen lining up and shooting 8 captives in a crowded street. This is very graphic. Part of what analysts call a bloody crackdown to reassert control after 2 years of war. Now, Hamas officials say the killings were retaliation against a rival clan that they accuse of collaborating with Israel. President Trump, who helped broker the peace, the ceasefire deal, said that he now strongly condemns this violence. The U.S. military later issued a statement condemning the shootings and urging Hamas to stop targeting civilians. Analysts warn the internal fighting could jeopardize the fragile truce and undermine Trump's plan for a post-war Gaza.
We know that the president suggested to reporters, I think, at the start of his Mideast trip, that he had said yes to Hamas policing the territory for a short period of time. Not sure that falls in line with what he had in mind, though.
There were many, according to reporting, many close to this deal that said, look, we're not ready yet. This is not ready for print yet. The deal needs more, we need to get further into it. And the administration was so eager to get the victory, to say we got peace, they may have rushed it a little bit.
The time would never be ready. It would never be ready if you were waiting for the perfect situation to take place.
Yeah, it's
but
complicated.
They had never agreed to disarm, and that remains a concern. Sidebar here, it was interesting to hear Zoran Mamdani, who's by all indications going to be the mayor of New York City, say on Fox News he would not condemn Hamas, pressed numerous times by the host. He would not condemn Hamas, which is just so surprising. Look, on the surface, not to get involved in the politics here, there are 2 million Jews in New York. That is the largest Jewish population in the U.S. by a country mile. And it is really unusual to see someone dominating in the polls who won't condemn Hamas. Strange situation, strange optics.
He tries to bring it back to what New Yorkers want and need.
He was dodging, dodging and weaving because he didn't want to upset the pro-Palestinian, the free Gaza
really
individuals.
Interesting optics there.
Yeah, it is.
All right, just when you thought President Trump had enough international headlines this week, now we go to this. A day after he announced another suspected drug boat was destroyed by the U.S. military that's off the coast of Venezuela, Trump is now acknowledging publicly that he signed off on CIA operations inside Venezuela. The president saying he did this to stop the flow of migrants and drugs into this country.
We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela, and a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea, so you get to see that. But we're going to stop them by land also. But I think Venezuela is feeling heat, but I think a lot of other countries are feeling heat too. We're not going to let this country, our country, be ruined because other people want to drop, as you say, their worst.
So this is the first time the president has publicly detailed this decision, which expands the agency's power to conduct lethal targeting if needed and covert actions in that region. Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, called Trump's comments warmongering and xenophobic, accusing the U.S. of violating international law. And also here at home, some Democrats and constitutional lawyers, they're questioning how legal this is, and very unusual for a sitting president to publicly acknowledge CIA covert operations as they are apparently just beginning or ongoing.
Dangerous, not just unusual, but dangerous. If you are a covert op in that country operating right now, that is not just unusual, unheard of. And then a reporter pressed him on if they would consider assassination of Maduro. And there was no denial there. There was no pushback.
Yeah, he just said, I'm not going to answer that question. It would be
highly,
I think he said, sort of ridiculous for me to entertain that question, but he didn't say.
Yeah.
No. All right.
Meanwhile, in a show of solidarity from the press, Pentagon reporters from almost every major newsroom turn in their badges, protesting new rules they say threaten press freedom. This is video of reporters staging a walkout afterwards with their belongings. New Pentagon policy requires journalists not to report unauthorized information, classified or otherwise. They could lose their access and face legal action. Now, Fox News, NBC, ABC, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, Newsmax, Axios, many others refused to sign on to the new 21-page agreement. One very minor conservative outlet did sign the pledge, OAN, I believe. Press groups call it a dark day for First Amendment rights and government transparency. Defense officials say the policy protects troops and national security. President Trump said he supports the new Pentagon rules. The Obama administration was accused of restricting press access by some media outlets to things like Guantanamo, court filing and military operations and other matters. But this is unprecedented. And again, like just to step back a little bit, Fox News, Newsmax, the Ellison-owned CBS under the control of Barry Weiss, they all say solidarity here. You have heard numerous officials, former generals on Fox say this is not okay.
Well, so what happens now? Because if only one network is signing the pledge and the Pentagon is just going to, so the news is not going to get out.
I don't know about that. They just don't have access to the building. Will the news get out? They're still going to continue to report. They just won't do it from inside the building. It definitely changes their access to information for sure.
The National Press Club said if news about the military must first be approved by the government, then the public is no longer getting independent reporting.
Yeah, I talked to Brett Baer about this, a Fox News journalist. He said he was a former Pentagon reporter. He said no reporters ever had access to classified areas of the Pentagon, ever.
Yeah, they knew the rules of the road.
And they always wore badges, and they always stayed in the press areas.
Right.
So this is something to continue to watch.
Well, we may be looking at some severe weather in our forecast over the next few days. AccuWeather meteorologist Alex De Silva joins us now with more on that. It just stopped raining around here, so now we're looking ahead to the tropics, though, for some trouble.
Yeah, indeed we are, and we're approaching the second peak of the severe weather season. Of course, the first one, the biggest peak in severe weather, is typically in the month of May, but then we actually have another peak in October and November, and that's because the jet stream starts to come south again, getting prepared for the winter. We get those clashes of air masses, so it looks like we're going to be having some severe weather this week. For today, looks like it's going to be in the Central Plains here, extending from northern Texas all the way to South Dakota. For tomorrow, I think the threat shifts east just a little bit, more towards eastern Kansas and Missouri. But I think Saturday is probably the biggest day of the next several for severe weather. We have a moderate risk of severe weather here across Arkansas and into southern Missouri as well. We could see isolated tornadoes, hail, and some damaging winds as well. So again, a lot of people like to think about the spring as the severe weather season, and that's typically when we see the most reports. But the fall can also have a lot of severe weather as well.
Also, looking ahead to what's happening in the tropics, are we seeing another tropical storm possibly forming in the Atlantic coming up in the next week?
Yeah, this is the area that we're watching right now. We're watching the area down here in the Caribbean, especially. There's an area highlighted up here. There's a chance there could be a subtropical storm that forms up there, but that's moving away from the United States. No threat there. This is the area down here that I'm a little more concerned about. October 20th to the 24th. So that would be next week. We're looking for development. We'll track it for you here. So there's a tropical wave way out near Africa right now. So through probably the weekend, we're not really going to see much development with this as it's coming west towards the islands. But as it comes into the islands and into the Caribbean next week, I think environmental conditions get a little bit more favorable for development. Some of those hostile winds decrease and the water temperatures increase in this area as well. So we're really going to have to watch this area closely. It's a very long way from the United States. If it were to come towards us, we would be looking at least 10 days away. Right now, there's no threat to the United States, but it's something that we definitely have to keep a very close eye out for as we still have a month and a half left of the tropical season.
We know you'll keep us honest on that, Alex. Thanks so much. We'll check back with you tomorrow. Appreciate it. Connecting America just getting started on this Thursday morning. Coming up next, we're going to speak with the mother of a girl with autism who's losing some vital services because of the shutdown. That's when we come right back.
Welcome back to Connecting America. 15 Democratic governors have formed a public health alliance in response to the Trump administration policies. Those states represent about a third of the U.S. population. The alliance will be a hub for governors so they can monitor disease outbreaks and respond, pool resources, coordinate communications, buy vaccines and other supplies, and prepare for possible pandemics. California Governor Gavin Newsom says we're, quote, stepping up to coordinate access across states, protect communities, and ensure decisions are driven by data, facts, and the health of the American people. The other states involved here: Colorado, Connecticut, my state, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Massachusetts, New Jersey, where we are, New York as well. This is North Carolina. So these aren't all like far left-leaning states.
Right.
These are some that are very purple in
and
nature.
An expansion of what we initially saw out west with California
exactly
forming one of these kinds of alliances.
Will they have the funding and the resources? Will the federal government cut them? That's a whole nother
question. They need
question.
federal funding on a lot of this.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of the federal government, the continuing shutdown, it's impacting hundreds of thousands of federal workers. We know that. But it's also affecting many families who rely on some programs that are supported by Washington. A lot of military families who depend on badly needed autism therapies are finding their level of treatment curtailed because of the stalemate in Washington. Yesterday, Kate Sullivan and I spoke with the mother of a 5-year-old with autism, as well as the founder of an advocacy group about the impact of the shutdown with this. Joining us now is Heather Bales. Her daughter Lily is a 5-year-old with severe nonverbal autism. And also here with us is Dr. Christy Cabillo, CEO and founder of Mission Alpha Advocacy, or MAA. Thanks for joining us here on Connecting America, to both of you this morning. Heather, first of all, tell us about Lily and how she benefits from treatments that are now unfortunately being reduced.
She benefits by being socially active, engaging. When she first started, she was 4 years old. She had a milestone marker of 1 year old, and with just 1 year of ABA therapy, she now has a benchmark of a 3-year-old. She has seen 2 years of growth in just 1 year with continued care of 32 hours of service. And with the shutdown and us going to only 8 hours of service, there's a break in her continued care. It's going to fall behind. She's going to lose what she has learned. For a child who needs routine and repetitive and extra steps, going maybe 4 hours one day and maybe 6 hours another day. For a child who only takes one step and they learn everything, for her, she has to have it repeated 25 times. So it is a severe setback and a delay in her learning.
Oh, I can imagine, and so troubling considering these times. Dr. Cabillo, tell us why military families are also getting impacted by the reduction in services.
Right, it has to do with how the funding is supplied to the ABA program. We receive ABA services through a demonstration. And so when the government is shut down, that means that the funding is stopped. And the funding won't start again to pay our providers until the government reopens.
How many families is this actually impacting across the country? And are there other services people are losing out on in this similar way?
Right. It's impacting about 16,000 military children all across the country. Another service that may be impacted is home health services for our most medically fragile children. There are some families who their home health providers will also stop receiving funds during the government shutdown.
Heather, you alluded to this, but I'd love for you to kind of expand this. How concerned are you that Lily will suffer now that she's getting less of the services that she so much needs?
Extremely concerned. It is heartbreaking to see this, to know that she is nonverbal and very high tolerance for pain, and she doesn't understand danger, that they are teaching her to understand danger by direct responder learning, to make eye contact. Now we have lost that support for her and other children like her who like to elope or run and just escape. It's very hard for us. It's very frightening. We don't have our support system. We are losing everything.
What would you say to our members of Congress, to President Trump, about the impact it's having on you and other families? And what would you like to see happen?
I would like ABA, first of all, to be seen as a recognized therapy, just like speech and OT. It is not a trial, it's mandatory. Speech and OT were not first for my daughter. She couldn't make eye contact. She couldn't respond to individuals. She was afraid of people. With ABA, she was able to overcome those things and be receptive to occupational therapy and receptive to speech. So those were secondary to us. It needs to be made essential therapy for all of our children. It is not an experiment. For a lot of us, it is between life and death. And I would like Congress to know that my husband is 100% disabled vet. We can't just go out and get new insurance. He's non-workable. We gave up our time, our health, and everything with the security that we would have guaranteed health. We would have that in place for our children. You're messing with kids, and this is unacceptable.
Dr. Cabillo and Heather, we thank you so much for letting us know about this issue here on Connecting America, and we do hope that we wish Lily the best. We see her with her guitar there in that picture. She looks absolutely beautiful, and we hope that this gets resolved so that you can continue her therapies as needed. Thanks once again.
So, just listening to the mom talk about the importance of the ABA, which is applied behavior analysis, not being like considered mandatory or like, mainstream program. I mean, it was 20 years ago that I did a story over at CNN about, this person whose son, she found this ABA therapy, which at the time was not mainstream at all. And he went from being completely nonverbal to, when I interviewed him at age 16, just like a regular kid. And she said it was all because of that ABA therapy.
Good to shine a spotlight on that. Democrats will be in a tough spot again today because Republicans are holding a vote to fund the military for the next year, and it doesn't look like it has any Democratic support. The optics of that for Democrats are going to continue to be tough.
Well, up next, Britney Spears' ex, Kevin Federline, is dishing some new dirt on Britney in his new memoir. We're going to speak with the USA Today reporter who just interviewed Federline. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Connecting America here at the Sunrise Diner in Roselle Park, New Jersey. Kids, don't try this at home. It's illegal for base jumpers to sail off cliffs at national parks in the United States for safety reasons.
Don't have to tell me twice.
Nope, but that's being ignored by some courageous jumpers, you might call them, at Yosemite Park in California. Courageous or stupid. While it may be illegal, the jumpers appear to be getting away with it because staff limitations due to the government shutdown. This El Capitan, the famous massive granite monolith in California, rises 3,000 feet from the valley floor. Yosemite and other national parks are still open to the public, but staffing and services are limited. The Yosemite Conservancy reports there are only a few essential staff on duty there during the shutdown. The National Park Service says Yosemite is, quote, appropriately staffed. Would you? Yes or no?
Oh, heck no. No.
Hard no.
No,
Not adrenaline junkies at all?
I mean, I like a good roller coaster every now and then, but there's absolutely no way I'm
Have
base
you,
jumping.
do you skydive?
No. Have you?
Oh, yes. I would love to
course
go
he has.
again.
Of course, he's.
Of course.
What about
But my
bungee?
wife has
What about
banned me
bungee?
until the kids are through college.
Oh,
That's
then
the
she doesn't
new
care if you
rule.
die.
She doesn't care if I die as long as I
For as long
fund
as you
their
fund their
lives.
education.
Yes.
Okay.
And the life insurance policy is paid up.
That's right.
Actually, that may be what it is.
Yeah.
It may be
Yeah.
the health insurance policy. But
Yeah,
no, I
exactly.
do have a bit of adrenaline junkie in me.
And did you bungee jump ever?
That I'm not allowed to do when you break your back,
Mhm.
as which I did as a kid.
that wouldn't
you
be
can't
good.
sign
No.
the waiver.
Would you
there.
break your back skydiving?
No, I did that actually playing basketball. So
Basketball.
playing basketball, story for another day. But I've got some impressive scars. If you guys
Oh
ever
my
Oh.
gosh.
wanna take a look.
All right.
right.
What
Well,
else is going on, guys?
Britney Spears' ex-husband, Kevin Federline, says in his new memoir, quote, "It's time to sound the alarm," unquote, about her behavior. He wrote, "You thought you knew." I would have titled it, "Do we really care to know?" But anyway.
Wow.
Federline-
Savage.
Federline says that he heard about her behavior for years from their two sons who were, I think, 18 and 20 and live with him. According to Federline, when the boys were younger, they said that they sometimes would wake up in the middle of the night to find her standing silently in the bedroom door with a knife in her hand. This is all according to his
Whoa.
autobiography.
Yeah.
He wrote that since 2021, when Britney was released from her conservatorship, the clock is ticking and we're getting close to the 11th hour, that something bad is going to happen, unquote. Something bad did happen to him. She had to stop. She stopped having to pay him child support. So he wrote a book. He was getting 40 grand a month from her from their 3-year marriage.
All right. Well, Kevin Federline spoke with Ralphie Aversa, the host of USA Today's Entertain This, and explained why he's speaking out now.
Why now? For 2 decades, I feel like everybody else has told my story, and now it's time for me to tell it. Things happened the way they did, and I feel like staying silent was needed for my family, and so that's what I did. Point of the Free Britney. Like, I feel like staying silent kind of created a lot of the momentum for that because the truth wasn't out there, not the whole truth.
And Ralphie Aversa joining us now here on Connecting America. Good morning, Ralphie. Thanks for being here. So Kevin Federline saying he thinks there's a bad outcome ahead and it's inevitable for his ex. So he writes a book about this. Why is that the course of action here, do you think?
Well, according to Kevin, that's the course of action because he feels he's out of options at this point. You know, when I was interviewing him, I made the sports analogy of, is this like your Hail Mary in a sense? And he tells me now, again, I hear there's at least one skeptic at the table, which is fine. Trust me, there are plenty of skeptics that are receiving this. I just can judge based on the comments we're getting on the USA Today Instagram about his intentions. But he says that he's really doing this for his sons to hopefully get his ex in a better place so that they will have a mom still in their lives.
Yeah, well, Bernie's team is certainly accusing Federline of writing the book to profit off of her now that she does not have to pay him child support anymore. She also spoke out about it, calling it gaslighting. What does he say about that?
So I would imagine he was expecting something like this. You know, I asked him during our interview when the last time he spoke with Spears was, and he said years, plural. So clearly they don't really have a relationship. I also asked him when's the last time his sons spoke with Britney, and he was a little more evasive on that. He said it was more of a fluid relationship that both Jaden and Preston had with their mom. But yeah, as you mentioned, Britney issuing that statement on X after issuing a statement to USA Today saying that all of Kevin's lies were going straight to the bank.
Let me just take Kevin out of the equation for a moment. It doesn't appear he's the only one deeply concerned about Britney Spears' mental state. Fans all over the place watch her Instagram and they just don't understand what's going on. How widespread and really fact-based are these concerns about her mental health?
Well, you know, one of the interesting things that's happened since the Free Britney movement and the end of the conservatorship is that, you know, we don't really have a lot of sources around Britney, and we don't really know too many people that are in her orbit. I mean, she's not currently, as far as we know, recording music. She did tease last year a biopic based on her memoir, which she's also pointing people to at least get her side of the story in all of this. And of course, she doesn't paint Kevin in the most flattering of lights. And by the way, I should say, as somebody who did read Kevin's memoir ahead of interviewing him, he also, you know, owns up to some of his mistakes that he's made, not just in his relationship with Britney, but I mean, he's got 6 kids with 3 different women. So, so you know, he's made a few mistakes as well that he owns up to in this book. But as far as Britney and those concerns, I feel like objectively you could look at some of these videos and you have at least a question or two about what's happening in her life right now. But nobody has any other concrete details outside of that.
Yeah, I mean, she's a grown woman, and the kids are too. The kids are not minors anymore. They're one of them recently, it turned 18 or 19. I can't remember, and the other one is 20. I mean, and you know, apparently, I mean, when they turn that age, they can do whatever they want to. They can have a relationship with their parents or not. So that's just, the timing is a little bit curious. They're not minor children.
No, you're 100% correct on that. And again, Kevin, at least what he told me, you know, he does want his kids to have a relationship. He wants them to have a relationship with their mom. And he feels, you know, I asked him, talking about those Instagram videos, and this is the clip that's actually going to come out later today at usatoday.com. I asked him when he watches, you know, the video of Britney Spears on her Instagram, and there's, I think, multiple videos of her dancing with knives, which Britney claims, by the way, are toy knives, regardless. You know, and we're seeing some of this video right here. I asked him, you know,
those don't look like toys.
They don't. Again, I'm just, you know, kind of giving you both sides of it here.
Sure.
Britney claims that they are. But regardless, I asked Kevin, you know, when you see that video, and especially in light of some of the claims he makes in this book, what do you think? And the first word that came out of his mouth was terrified. So again, look.
Same.
Same. I do find it. This is why the whole Free Britney movement happened, though. I mean, she's dancing like in front of a camera and putting it out on her Instagram. I mean, are we going to start policing everybody whose behavior we find to be outrageous? Because then we'd have a lot of conservatorships around the country.
Well, I think a big part of the Free Britney movement was her father, Jamie, and the intentions that he may or may not have had, around this conservatorship. Kevin also addresses that in his memoir, and he says that he really truly believes that when the conservatorship began, I mean, geez, nearly 2 decades ago, Jamie at the time was just trying to save his daughter. Now, what happened since then? He talks about the fact that he eventually had to file a restraining order against Jamie because Jamie had some substance abuse issues when it came to alcohol. What happened since then, I think, led to a lot of what we saw 4 years ago with the Free Britney movement.
Is there a movie deal in the works with Federline's book? Is that what we read?
We haven't heard anything about that yet. But again,
Okay.
Britney teased that she's got something in the works. She teased that last year.
All right. Ralphie Aversa, host of USA Today's Entertain This video franchise. Thanks for keeping us up to speed on what's going on with Britney. We appreciate it. Interesting interview, I'm sure.
You think she looks okay?
I'm just saying, are you going to go? I mean,
Hold on.
she is.
You think she looks okay?
I didn't say she looks okay. I think that, she's, but she's free to dance around with knives, real or imagined. Her 2 dogs in the background seem fine. As long as she clutches them tightly. But I just mean, what are we going to do? I mean, there is a real argument that, like, if you're,
her fans are deeply concerned for her health, for her mental health. and she's still a global icon.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, since 2021, since her conservatorship ended, she has not been in any criminal trouble. There has not been any, so.
Oh, no, I'm talking about genuine concern for her mental health. I don't know what you're alleging.
Do you think that she should be?
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying.
I think she needs help. Like, we should be concerned for the human here.
Yeah, well, I mean.
Just the whole concept of, having to put out videos like that, standing in front of a phone or a camera and dancing.
Well, that's the world in which we live.
It's crazy.
I know. She's just doing it because she craves attention.
Yeah, that's why most people do that.
We're going to stick with the subject of social media. Actually, coming up next, Dr. Jeffrey Gardier is going to talk about teens and social media and how Instagram is now limiting some of the content young people can see.
Maybe we should play a video, the knife video, and get Dr. Jeff's take on that.
He'll have a good take on that.
Yeah. All right. We'll be back.
Well, welcome back to Connecting America from the Sunrise Diner in Roselle Park, New Jersey. Halloween is just 2 weeks from tomorrow. By the way, I got my dog's costumes. I got the little Chucky one, the running. Yeah, for the little one. And then I just got like a lion's mane for the big one.
I love it. My dog would dress up, but what about you?
It's way too long of a process. Halloween's like my favorite. I'll show you guys a picture after the fact. I can't reveal anything right now. Okay. But what I can say is that Dunkin' Donuts can reveal that they have a new drink, and it's called the Candy Bar Signature Latte. They brought back some old favorites as well. The Spider Donut, yummy, purple icing, and also Halloween Munchkins Bucket. featuring donut holes covered in chocolate and orange sprinkles. And the Munchkin bucket has 50 donut holes with assorted flavors. And they're also selling Halloween merch, including spider plushies and spider donut onesie costumes.
And
there's your costume, Dave.
For baby.
Well, Dunkin' does
for
have a
babies.
lot to do with my Halloween costume.
Really?
Oh, it does.
It is Dunkin' Donuts themed. So just let that
Really?
marinate for a
Okay.
little bit.
What about
okay?
you, Jim?
Dave says we're going to be doing a group costume, and he's not revealing what it is. I don't know.
I have not.
You're going to leave it in Dave's hands, your
I'm
Halloween
very,
costume.
I'm very
All right.
afraid.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Right. Speaking of spooky. All right. Protein probably is not the first thing that comes to mind when you think about Pop-Tarts, but the sugary breakfast treat is joining Doritos and lots of other packaged goods by getting turbocharged with protein.
Oh, yeah, brown
Pop-Tarts
cinnamon
get their protein boost next month with the addition of wheat protein and a milk protein. They'll still have 30 grams of sugar,
which is like
30 grams. They're made by Kellanova. They already make higher protein Eggo waffles. PepsiCo previously announced protein packed Doritos, which are not out yet. It's meant to appeal to people who want more protein in their diet, which is a massive trend.
But still want to eat like
Starbucks cold foam protein drinks around.
It's a
It
thing.
is popcorn. There is a protein popcorn. It is
There is
everywhere.
Yeah, and
now.
I was reading this article that said that we're not even close to hitting the ceiling for the call for packaged and processed foods to have protein in them. I mean, you still
I'm
have to
all
make
for protein, but
Yeah.
but Doritos and Pop-Tarts, like I want to get it from my protein smoothie or
without lead,
Or a steak.
preferably.
without. Well, I don't love lead. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's an issue apparently with some of the powder.
It
drinks.
is
We
with,
talked
the,
about
with the
that.
powders. Yeah.
Okay, well, with all the talk about social media addiction by teenagers, Instagram's finally taken a step to try to deal with some of that exposure by its hundreds of millions of teen users. Coming up by the end of the year, Instagram's going to start limiting the content that teens can see in the default teen account. They're going to base restrictions on the PG-13 ratings that apply to movies. Company's also placing some limits on the kinds of conversations its artificial intelligence chatbots can have with its younger users.
I'm very skeptical that they pull this off.
So let's talk about this with Dr. Jeff Gardier for this discussion about teens and how much they're using social media, the possible impact of that on them. Good morning, Dr. Jeff. How are you?
Good morning, team. Great to see you all, as always.
So
Me too.
talk about some of the warning signs parents should be looking for to know when or if their child is just overdoing it with these things in social media.
Well, we know that they are overdoing it, and I'm going to agree with Dave that I'm a little bit skeptical, but it is a step in the right direction, but it's something that should have happened quite a while ago. But that being said, what are the warning signs that our children are being harmed by a lot of this social media stuff? Well, the things you need to know. Is there a change in their behavior where they're becoming more anxious or depressed? Is it a situation of where they're not getting the proper sleep because they're so much on these particular apps? Poor concentration, which results in a drop in grades at school. Are they distracted? Are you seeing secretive phone use or computer use that certainly they don't want you to know? Those are the warning signs that parents need to look at and say, hey, let's take control of this. Because after all, PG-13 is really about whether parents feel that their children can handle content, especially children under the age of 13, should they be looking at these sorts of things?
You know, it's really easy to see, Dr. Jeff, just as a parent. I can watch the kids get more depressed as they're, and anxious as they're just sitting around scrolling, whether they're on the couch or in the car or whatever. And, I understand the concept of trying to at least put some measures in place, but it is really, really easy to just let that happen. As a parent, I encourage my kids, even the ones that are, older teens, to put screen time limitations on things like Instagram. And I noticed that when they do that, they tend to be, more eager to hang out, more eager to get involved in conversation than if they're just endlessly scrolling.
That's right, Karen. And what we're talking about here is what can you do as parents? Because it's not just the PG-13 rating that is now going into the content, but you still need to be involved as parents in helping your children not become addicted to social media or be harmed by it. So yes, I think it is important that you put some of those screens on, that you be able to monitor what it is that they're doing, but also create tech-free zones where you don't let them have the devices at dinner time or have them in the bedroom. Make sure that they're not hiding it or by themselves. But one of the most important things that we need to do is modeling healthy behavior. You remember, yes,
Yep.
you
I
remember
hear ya.
Madonna. You remember Madonna with Papa Don't Preach? Well, I say, Papa, please reach and put your cell phones away, darn it, because if you talk the talk, you better walk the walk.
Therein lies my problem, Dr. Jeff. I am setting a very bad example north of 12 hours a day, as you can see me here. But as for age-appropriate content, first off, it is such a vast sea of content. That is where I'm skeptical of Instagram doing this job. But also, don't teens usually register as older? Do they actually use their birth date anyway?
Well, that's the problem that we're running into. Unless parents are involved, kids will find a workaround in order to get to some of the more adult content. And that's a real issue. And that's why we need parents to stay involved as much as possible in what their kids are seeing, because we know that there are some positive things about social media. It helps them find support groups, it gets them information, academic information. But at the same time, if they spend too much time on social media, then we begin to see these issues around anxiety and depression and being picked on and being bullied.
Hey, Dr. Jeff, I don't know if you were watching before we came to you, the Britney Spears segment we just did,
Yeah.
and the book Kevin Federline has out. And we were looking at some of her videos that she's posting on Instagram, and here at the table we were weighing in on how disturbing this really is. What's your take on this?
Well, I get Kieran's point that if everyone posted something that may look disturbing, then we wouldn't have anyone posting and people would go after them. So I get that. But at the same time, I understand what Dave was saying. Yes, I was watching. I understand what Dave was saying. When we have a triangulation of information, and as we do with Brittany, we have all of that info coming in, and then you put that right next to this dancing with the knives that she's doing. I think that certainly it can be very disturbing. But the most important thing, and what I think we all need to do, is to show empathy towards Britney Spears. She's had a lot of challenges, a lot of criticisms, and it's really important that we support her in her struggle to maintain her integrity.
Hopefully she has someone in her life like you who's willing to help her out, and get real with her.
Yeah,
and
well, I certainly would be happy to help.
Well, we'll let her know if we talk to her. But Dr. Jeff Gardere, psychologist, great having you with us every morning as usual. Thanks.
Hey, we could be a step closer to the lights turning off on Broadway. Broadway musicians voted this week to authorize a strike. They aren't striking yet, but members are giving the union the okay to walk away from the negotiations at any time. Big sticking point here, better health coverage and higher contributions by producers to pay towards those costs for actors. Broadway actors and stage managers are also considering similar action. Recently, we spoke with our Broadway correspondent, Lee Sheps, about the strike and its impact on everyone.
Well, the number one thing that people keep asking me is, what should I do with my tickets? Should I go and keep my tickets? Should I exchange my tickets? Should I continue buying tickets? The answer is yes. There has not been an announcement on if there will be a strike or when there will be a strike. So I will say, continue to do what you're doing. As of this morning, 31 members of Congress have signed a bipartisan letter to send it in support of both unions, urging not to have a strike. Because think about it, in the pandemic, we had a Broadway shutdown for a year and a half, and that would be detrimental to the Broadway industry and the entire economy. And here's what they said in part of a statement in this letter: a disruption to Broadway will result in significant economic disruption to not just the New York metropolitan area, but harm theater workers and patrons across the country and around the world.
But Lee, what's the main reason for the musicians wanting to strike? The healthcare?
Well, healthcare, yes, and they want higher wages, noting that last year Broadway had its highest grossing record in history. You know, as the saying goes, the show must go on, but you cannot go on for these artists if they're not able to do their work. And in a statement, here's what the Musicians Union said: audiences deserve the magic of live Broadway, but the artists that make the magic happen must be paid fairly and must not have their jobs and benefits taken away from them.
I see humane scheduling on there. I mean, Broadway is a grind for the actors and for everybody else, everybody behind the scenes and the musicians.
They're doing 8 shows a week. Think about it. In terms of the actors, they're not just rolling out of bed and going to work like maybe most of America. You know, sometimes we roll out of bed if we're working from home too. They are putting in 300% of energy. And we have a graphic of what these actors are looking for, and I want to see if we can pull that up. They are looking for safe staffing, humane scheduling, better paid time off, sustainable working conditions, having producers paying fair share of benefits. These are things that everybody in America wants. They want better pay and better health care.
Yeah, the grind is physically very demanding for so many of these shows. You got to stay. It's not just appearing at the theater; it's what they have to do when they're not at the theater performing. You know, staying in shape and taking care of their bodies. What's the timing on this, Lee, in terms of when there could be a walkout, if there is one?
Well, the Musician Union is currently still in negotiations with the Broadway League, and that is the organization that represents the theater owners and the producers. So they will continue their discussions next week. But if you don't work as a musician, you don't get paid. And in terms of the Actors Equity Association, I sent them an email yesterday asking for updated information, and a rep responded to me that they have not yet set a date for when a strike would occur, if there is a strike. The last time there was an actor strike was in the 1960s. And in terms of the last strike on Broadway, well, that was in 2017. It was a stagehand strike, and that lasted 19 days.
Yeah, I remember that time as well. I mean, everybody's needed. It takes the whole village to make this happen.
Well, Broadway just bounced back from the COVID-19 shutdown. And the last thing anybody wants, the Broadway League and any union and anyone in New York City and around the country does not need Broadway to shut down again, because to work to build that up again with all those lost ticket sales, with all that last work, would be a huge detriment to the economy.
People have been doing.
All right, so Lee, for people, anybody out there watching who wants to support the actors and musicians, is there a place they can go?
Oh, thank you so much, Allison. Yes, so far 8,000 people have pledged their support. There is a place you can go on Instagram, Equity United Official, and if you want to show your support too, you can go there, find a letter, and send and sign your name, and that will go to the Broadway League in support. So anybody can do that.
And again, if people have tickets they're holding on to, and it happens to coincide with the strike, do they get their money back? Do we know?
I assume so, yes, because
Yeah.
if a show is canceled on Broadway for whatever reason, that's been the policy. They've been able to get their money back through the payment of which they bought the ticket, and then you can exchange it for another day.
You're just hoping that doesn't happen.
No, because I have a lot of tickets coming up.
Yeah. Lee Sheps, thanks for being here.
So much.
Appreciate it.
The views expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of USA Today or its affiliates.
Welcome back to Connecting America. We are streaming on the USA Today streaming channels this morning. As always, I'm Jim Rosenfield. We got Dave Briggs here, Kieran Chetry, here at the Sunrise Diner, Roselle Park, New Jersey, on this almost Friday morning.
That's how we do it, man. That's how we get through our weeks.
That's what we're talking about. All right, a neighborhood in Chicago's South Side really looked like a war zone this week. Have you seen this? Federal agents firing tear gas to fight back against some protesters there. The clash started after an SUV carrying agents crashed into a car that they were going after. Dozens of masked immigration agents, then they arrived at the scene. Residents poured out into the streets, as you see here. Protesters were throwing things at the agents, and then the agents used tear gas to try to break up the crowd. This is just the latest in a series of clashes in Chicago between those ICE agents and people who live there. Jeremy Ross is a reporter based out of Chicago for us. Good morning. Thanks for being here, Jeremy. So talk about the coordination between local law enforcement and the feds when these kinds of situations are developing there.
It is a very strained relationship, I think, is a good way of describing what you're talking about here. And it's not necessarily all centered around the politics of this, and there's lots of politics to go around. Chicago's top cop commenting about this very recently, talking about local police here. We're talking about the Chicago Police Department have to walk a very fine line because the laws that are here essentially say that local police, Chicago police officers, cannot directly enforce immigration. That's with the law of Chicago. That is the law of the state. So they have to essentially be in communication with these federal agents, but at the same time, not be in active cooperation. And that's just due to the laws here. And so Chicago police have been tasked not with a near impossible responsibility, certainly shy of that, but a difficult line to walk to make sure that if there's a crime that's committed, that they're on scene, that they're investigating, that they are allowing to make people safe. And that includes crowd control, which was the case yesterday. And talking about that crash that you're describing, it is where federal agents clashed with protesters just this week, starting after an SUV carrying agents crashed into a car that they were pursuing. A spokeswoman claimed that those agents, however, were struck in their vehicle before that occurred. Now, dozens of masked immigration agents arrived at the scene, neighbors pouring into the streets, protesters, as you mentioned, throwing things, agents then deploying tear gas to disperse the crowd. Among those impacted, by the way, with that tear gas, more than a dozen Chicago police officers there. So there appears to be some sort of communication breakdown with that, and that's something that authorities will be working on certainly in the days and potentially weeks to come. This is just the latest in these clashes between neighbors and agents in and around the Chicago area.
What have you heard from people that you talk to in these communities that are being impacted right now? I mean, just going about everyday life, trying to get to your job, trying to get your kids to school, and having these situations blow up around you.
It has been very difficult, particularly in minority communities in and around Chicago, whether we're talking about African-American communities, Latino, Hispanic communities, Asian communities. There is a very real concern and a very real scare that's out there where your neighbor might leave to go to work and they're not sure if they're coming back home. They are concerned about being snatched off the street. And I'm talking about citizens and non-citizens out there. There have been cases documented of citizens being picked up, being detained for hours, and eventually being let go without charges. Certainly no one wants that inconvenience, and there are families here that are concerned that their loved ones going to go to work and not coming home. Again, citizen and non-citizen. Now, I do need to point out, in some of these communities, there are community members who will not go on camera, who have for years been yelling and screaming and requesting more safety presence in and around these neighborhoods to combat things like gangs. Chicago has a huge gang problem. We won't hear from them on camera because many of them are afraid to go on camera. But there are people out there who are happy to see additional enforcement out there. If they had their choice, it would be law enforcement. It would be traditional police presence. So that exists out there. It's unclear how many people we're talking about, of course.
And what's the latest with the Trump administration's attempt to deploy the National Guard to Chicago?
Yeah, this is such a layered story in complexity, the politics, the judicial aspect of this. The latest that we have heard is that a judge has blocked the federalization and deployment of hundreds of members of the Illinois National Guard, the Texas National Guard, also a handful of members from the California National Guard into Illinois. And so that's currently under an appeal. So it's basically a deployment limbo, if you will. And these Guard members, hundreds of them, essentially, they remain at a military facility in Joliet. That's about an hour and a half away from my current location. And they're basically training. They're not able to be deployed because this is on appeal, but it's unclear exactly when the next legal decision will be coming. It could be hours, days, perhaps even weeks.
All right, we'll watch for that. Jeremy Ross, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, the County Board of Supervisors declared a state of emergency over the ICE immigration raids there. It will allow LA to offer resources to people who can't work because they're afraid of being detained or whose breadwinners have been arrested by federal ICE agents. It also allows the county to vote later to impose an eviction moratorium for renters who may have fallen behind on payments because they won't go to work and face possible arrest. The justification? Well, the county says federal immigration sweeps have created a climate of fear because officers were masked and thousands of people have been detained. And this is the situation, of course, across the country, no more so than Portland, where now it's a sea of inflatable frogs and giraffes and everything else to make their point that they have peaceful demonstrations thus far.
Yeah. I want to turn to our attention to what's been developing overseas in the Middle East now, right?
That's right. Hamas is now saying that it has returned the last of the remains of hostages that it can actually locate and recover. It handed over 2 coffins to the Red Cross yesterday. According to the terms of the ceasefire, the fighting between Israel and Hamas would stop, and that Hamas would return all hostages, both living and dead. However, Hamas said that they had trouble finding remains because of the damage that happened in Gaza. They did free 20 living captives on Monday. And again, they say the remains of 8 people were handed over this week.
The ceasefire may have stopped the fighting between Israel and Hamas, but inside Gaza, we're seeing a different kind of violence that's going on there. In video we first showed you yesterday, this is a very disturbing scene. Masked gunmen lining up and seen shooting 8 captives there in this crowded street, part of what analysts call a bloody crackdown to reassert control by Hamas after 2 years of war. Hamas officials say the killings, they were retaliation against a rival clan they accuse of collaborating with Israel. President Trump, who helped broker the ceasefire, says Hamas had taken out a couple of gangs that were very bad, in his words. The U.S. military later issued a statement condemning the shootings and urging Hamas to stop targeting civilians. Analysts are warning the internal fighting could jeopardize the fragile truce and undermine President Trump's plan for a post-war Gaza. So a little bit of the wild, wild west going on there. Not totally unexpected by any means.
No, but it's there's a lot of people who say it's a very, very bad optics that there was all of these calls to get out of Gaza, get the IDF out of there, and allow for them to rebuild. And now we're having Hamas carrying out retaliations against fellow Gazans. I mean, these people are fellow Gazans that are being shot in the street.
Yeah, and the key part of this whole peace deal is Hamas agreeing to lay down its arms.
Which isn't entirely clear if they were ever on board with that plan, clearly. Meanwhile, just when you thought President Trump had enough international headlines this week, now this. One day after he announced another suspected drug boat was destroyed by the U.S. military off the coast of Venezuela, Trump now acknowledging he signed off on CIA operations inside Venezuela. The The president saying he did this to stop the flow of migrants and drugs into the U.S.
We have a lot of drugs coming in from Venezuela, and a lot of the Venezuelan drugs come in through the sea, so you get to see that. But we're going to stop them by land also. But I think Venezuela is feeling heat, but I think a lot of other countries are feeling heat too. We're not going to let this country, our country, be ruined because other people want to drop, as you say, their worst.
Now, the first time Trump has publicly detailed the decision, which expands the agency's power to conduct lethal targeting and covert actions in the region. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro called Trump's comments, quote, warmongering and xenophobic, accusing the U.S. of violating international law. Here at home, some Democrats and constitutional lawyers are also questioning the legality of the president's move. There's no real due process for literally blowing up these boats off the coast of Venezuela, but
that are bringing drugs, that are trafficking drugs into our country. And
so far as we know,
people.
There's no due process.
Right.
So usually those people are pulled over by the Coast Guard. But what a lot of concerns are also, aside from the constitutional, is that the main source of these drugs are coming across our southern border, and fentanyl is coming from China. None of it comes from Venezuela.
Well, but cocaine and some other
almost
drugs
none of it goes through Venezuela.
Cocaine does.
Almost none of it comes from Venezuela. They say Central America through to Mexico. The reports I've read this morning say a very finite amount.
The other question is the emptying of the prisons that the Trump administration is saying is happening. That Venezuela, Maduro purposely letting some of the worst out of the prisons and coming into this country.
But we know the Democrats in Congress who have oversight are saying, show us the proof, either with these boats that they're taking out or that accusation. And they're concerned that the Trump administration has not adequately provided any kind of documentation or proof that these boats were in fact carrying drugs. And they want to see that. The president did, though, invoke what he had to do in terms of letting Congress know by signing a finding, a so-called legal document to say we're doing this. But what's so unusual, and we talked about this earlier, is a sitting U.S. president announcing this publicly, that we are undertaking covert operations in another country while it's happening.
Yeah, some of that's
Usually
probably
it's
gamesmanship.
afterwards. Yeah.
Well, that's not the end of the controversies. We're still in day 16 of the U.S. government shutdown, and a federal judge has now temporarily blocked the Trump administration from firing furloughed workers. The order came just days after the administration issued reduction in force notifications, or RIFs, to more than 4,000 federal workers. A coalition of unions argued any planned layoffs during the shutdown are both illegal and politically motivated. The California federal judge who issued the ruling cited comments by Trump and White House budget director that indicated the layoffs were related to programs that were favored by Democrats.
Another situation, this going on at the Pentagon. There's a show of solidarity this morning from the press here in America. Pentagon reporters from almost every major newsroom turning in their badges. They're protesting some new rules they say threaten press freedom at the Pentagon. I'm going to show you video of them sort of staging a walkout, if you will, afterwards with their belongings in hand. A new Pentagon policy requires journalists not to report so-called unauthorized information that's classified or not classified. And they're threatened with losing their access, and they face potential legal action if they violate the agreement. So Fox, NBC, ABC, CNN, the New York Times, the Washington Post, Newsmax, Axios, and many others refusing to sign on to that new 21-page agreement. One conservative outlet, One American News, did sign the pledge, but several other conservative outlets, as we just mentioned, they're saying no way. Press groups are calling this a dark day for the First Amendment and government transparency. Defense officials counter that the policy protects our troops and also national security. President Trump said he supports these new rules. The Obama administration, by the way, we should point out, was accused of restricting press access by some media outlets to things like Guantanamo court filings and military operations and other matters.
Credit Fox News, credit Newsmax for having solidarity with the other news operations. And part of what they're saying is, look, we might have a Democratic president in a couple of years. So if these same rules apply, we can't report on that either. So look, that's what I'm proud of, the conversation, like it was with the FCC when Ted Cruz stepped up and said, look, what happens when this is turned on us? And that's what we should always remind ourselves on. What if it was like on the other side?
Shoe on the other foot.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, after the break, we're going to speak with a wellness expert about asking for help, why asking for help is actually not a sign of weakness. It's actually beneficial for your self-development. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Connecting America. Glad to have you with us. You know, between work, family, and everything else, a lot of people struggle to ask for help when they need it most. Wellness experts say that learning to ask for help without feeling guilty about it is not a sign of weakness, but actually a step toward having a better well-being overall. And with more on that, we're joined by our resident mental health expert, Marcy Hopkins. Thanks so much for being with us, Marcy.
Hello, it's great to be here with you guys again.
You too. Well, you know, we're like a pull them up by their bootstrap kind of culture. You know, it's like asking for help is viewed really as a sign of weakness. But, you know, a lot of people struggle and they could use some help.
Yeah, it is hard. I see it all the time. I've lived it myself. We've been raised to believe that asking for help means like we're weak or we're incapable. But really, it's showing strength. And it's especially hard for moms. I mean, I've been there. So we feel like we got to do it all, right? We got to manage the house. We got to care for the kids. We got to hold it all together. And especially if we work. And when we can't, we feel like we're failing. I know so often I felt like that I was a failure if I couldn't do it all. But what I've learned is that asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of really being aware of what's going on, having the courage to ask, and it's saying, I can't do it all alone, and that's okay.
When we talk about asking for help, generally, Marcy, what are we talking about? Are you talking about turning to a professional or turning to a family member or a friend? What's the best course of action?
Well, obviously, when it comes to mental health, it is important to speak to your family members, somebody close to you. Also, look for professional help. But this is in your everyday life, asking for help and feeling like you don't have to handle it all. And there's some strategies that have really helped me, and I really believe that it can help others. And the first thing is, and this is really hard, is quieting that inner voice that says you should be able to handle it all, right? So you want to reframe that story. So instead of thinking I'm burdening someone, you think of it as I'm inviting someone in, or maybe if it's dinner time and you're asking your family to help in some capacity or the kids, you're creating some teamwork, you're bonding together. And be specific. Instead of saying I need help or you're not doing this for me, just say, if it's like your mother or something, could you watch the kids for an hour? Or can you, if it's at work, can you proof this for me? Don't say you're sorry for asking for help. You don't need to say that you're sorry. Just say thank you. Thank you for the help. And you want to start small. Practice with little things. So if you ask for little things, then it gets easier to ask for those big things that you need help with, and receive it with gratitude. Just say thank you. Accept the help because you deserve the support. We all do.
Marcy, I'm an all things guy. I go to therapy. I take an antidepressant. I meditate. I do it all just to stay sane and work out.
He's helping us.
And I'm still hanging on by a thread. But is there still stigma, in particular in the workplace?
I think it is hard to ask for help in the workplace, right? You feel like you should be doing it all. You've been given a task. But the reality is you can invite someone in and make it more of a collaboration. I'd love your perspective on this. Could you help me out with this? I'd love your take on this, because give them a compliment. Tell them how great they are in a certain area. We all have our strengths and our weaknesses, and it's really important to lean on those that are better than you in certain areas. That's showing strength. And you know what? You're making someone else feel good.
Marcy Hopkins, always appreciate your insights, and so important to be able to talk about these things. And by the way, Dave, kudos to you seriously for being so open about all the ways that you help yourself and the work that you're putting in.
It's not always easy, but I
it's
do try to
talk
wear it
about
as a badge of honor.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's very true. Well, we have a special guest with us today, Bob Engel, who is a traveling pastor. And, along these lines, thank you for coming in, by the way.
Yes.
People turn to you, I'm sure, for help a lot. And one of the things that people, that Marcy did touch on, is that you think that you're a burden to somebody when you're asking for help. But when you make somebody feel like they can add to your life, you're also helping them at the same time.
Yes.
What do you say to people that feel overwhelmed and are afraid to reach out?
Well, let me just give an example, just real quick. So I had to get to the airport, Uber ride. It's a great place just to talk to people and about life. And the individual was just hopeless and without any peace.
The driver?
The driver.
Oh.
Yeah. And so just natural conversations about life. And so he asked me, so what do you do? I said, well, I'm a pastor. And I told him, I just said, I find hope and peace as a Christian in a person, Jesus Christ. And it just opened up a conversation about his life, his struggles, his upcoming divorce in 1 week. And I think listening and giving and speaking hope and peace at least is a first step to help people.
you just happened to come into the diner for breakfast this morning, so we hope we're not interrupting your morning
The coffee's
meal.
good here. The coffee's really good.
But we appreciate it. So you're a traveling pastor, but are you associated with a local church or organization here in New Jersey?
Oh, great question. I actually work for a Christian ministry called World Impact. And so it was birthed out of the Watts riots. So we're 50 years old. And our role is to work with the poor. We started primarily in the inner cities of America. And then God has just opened up doors for us internationally.
One of the things I love about this program is seeing right over my shoulder, there's 3 gentlemen here that have breakfast here. It's their routine. And I think that's part of what Connecting America is bringing people together. And I think, Pastor, the longest study ever on happiness shows that relationships are key. So what do you urge people that are feeling lonely today? What should they do?
Man, that's great. In fact, I facilitated a gathering of international leaders last year, and it was on friendship, just relationship.
How important is that?
I think it's at the top of the list. Once again, as a Christian, Jesus came down. God spoke to us in relationship. Jesus just mingled with people,
right?
Ate fish with them. I'm sure he cooked a great fish sandwich. It was just awesome. And we lose sight of that. And religion, I'll use the word religion, is more, or Christianity is just more than a creed. And to build relationships with people and to listen. And it's just like, I'm not sure how else to say it. I just totally agree with that. I love relationships, and you got to work intentionally and hard at it.
Yes.
You know, in all things, you can get caught up in the trappings of, the material world and everyday life. So you're saying, friendships are important, but man, I can't meet this person because I have to work, or I have to do this, or I have to go there. And being able to find that type of time is not easy for people.
Yeah.
What do you recommend in terms of trying to, like you said, to show hope and peace and happiness through just communicating with other people?
Yeah. I think the word I would use again is intentionality. You have to be intentional. I'm not sure how else to say it. We especially in the West, you go to internationally when I travel, it's just a different worldview and how they look at relationships and community and things like that. Here in the West, we have to be intentional. And so discipline. So I'll be meeting with the pastor here in just a couple minutes, and there's probably about 10 other pastors I can meet with. So it's just a matter of you look at, this sounds really boring, but you'll look at your schedule and say, I'm going to put this person here, this person here. I have to say no. Now it's okay to say no.
Yep.
And to have when you say yes, then you're focused and intentional about the relationship that you have right in front of you.
That's a very interesting way to put it. So you don't know how it's going to end.
No.
You don't know how the conversation is going to go, but you're being intentional about actually getting it started.
Yes.
And does the person that you're meeting with know that you're now a television star?
No. No one does.
Going to find out soon.
Appreciate you being here.
Oh, thank you so much.
Go get some hot breakfast.
I will
all
do
right?
that. Thank you so much.
Pastor Bob Engel, thank you. Coming up after the break, USA Today's travel expert's going to join us to talk about cruise hacks, how to get the most from your money on the high seas when we come right back. Hard to believe it's almost time to start thinking about the holidays. We were talking about Halloween.
Yep.
Up next after that, of course, is Thanksgiving. And Aldi actually is rolling out a Thanksgiving feast that feeds 10 people for just $40. That $40 meal, the deal runs through Christmas Eve. $7 cheaper than last year's offer, working out to about $4 a person. This includes a 14-pound turkey and ingredients for 9 classic sides. Customers can grab the items in-store or order online through Instacart, Uber Eats, or DoorDash. Aldi's trying to market more budget-conscious buyers to those more budget-conscious buyers now. Walmart, Target, and Kroger also planning some budget buster deals.
That's really amazing that that you're able to like put it all together, hopefully in an affordable way.
Helpful,
And,
very helpful out there.
Well, if you want to take a cruise, okay, do you? By the way, either of you?
Love to.
No.
I'm mixed.
Okay, a lot
I'm
of
mixed
people love
on
them.
it, but now it is time to cruise the internet to find the best deals and the ports that you want to visit. There are a lot of factors that impact how much you have to pay when you're deciding on going to a cruise, what you will get for your money, and really they say it's all about timing. Joining us now, USA Today consumer and travel reporter Nathan Diller. Nathan, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
If it is about timing, what time of year is the best for getting a good value on a cruise?
So it sort of depends where you want to go. For a year-round destination like the Caribbean, you're going to want to think about the shoulder season. So at any time really the kids are back in school. So thinking about September leading up to Thanksgiving, maybe between January and March before spring break, those are great times. But if you're looking to go somewhere like Alaska that's seasonal, the Alaska season runs between about mid-April through September. So on the front or back end of that season is going to be generally more affordable time. So it's a little bit about where you want to go as well.
Is it like airlines, the earlier you book, the better, or is there a lot of last second deals out there?
Generally, yes. I spoke with a travel agent who said there is really a misconception with cruises that the longer you wait to book, you can get that last minute deal, and it's really not the case. So earlier the better is definitely true for cruises as well. She recommended at least a year or two in advance. So really as early as you can book, you'll be in better shape price-wise.
In your article, you talk about something called the wave season. What is that? And how that can impact the price?
Wave season is a period between about January and March, roughly, where cruise lines are really running some of their best deals of the year. So they're going to discount a lot of their fares. You might see add-ons like onboard credit that you can use for things on the ship when you board, or discounts on drink packages and other add-ons that might cost extra typically. So that's a period where you're going to be, as far as the booking timing, you might want to look during that wave season to see what offers they have available.
And Nathan, we know that Alaska is Alaskan cruises. They're super popular. You talked about the high season being April to September. What are some of the best sites that you see? And if you're trying to book within that time frame, where can you get the best prices?
Yeah, so typically with Alaska, you're going to want to look for prices, for discounts rather, you're going to want to look on the front or back end of that season. So looking in maybe around April, May, or towards the September time when kids are starting to go back to school and it's a little bit less crowded. You can definitely expect to see glaciers, lots of different wildlife. One thing to keep in mind is that if you are going on the earlier side or the later side, you may not see quite as much wildlife. And some tour operators do start to shut down in the off season, so some things may not be as open or as busy as they would be in June and July. So that's one thing to keep in mind, but you may find a discount. So that's the flip side.
All right, a lot of good stuff in there. USA Today consumer travel reporter Nathan Diller. Nathan, thanks for being with us. Well, it is time for a fitness check. Connecting America's fitness correspondent Jenna Wolf tells us, yeah, just those biceps, huh? 15 minutes a day can boost your health.
From my relatively small kitchen, that's okay. I happen not to have 60 straight minutes today to do a workout. It is a particularly busy day for me. I don't even have 45. Frankly, I probably don't have 30. What I do have is a desire for some coffee and some mean hunger pain, so I'd like to make some breakfast. Now, while I'm doing all those things, I could easily pick up my phone and scroll aimlessly. Or what I could do is fill those 15 minutes with 15 minutes that I most likely won't find later on in the day. Okay? Follow me. Here we go. But Jenna, you don't have any shoes on. That's okay. But Jenna, you don't have any space. That's okay. But Jenna, you don't have any equipment. But Jenna. I got you. It's all good. 15 minutes, very little space while your breakfast is being made. Let's go. First up, coffee. Coffee, very important. While coffee is being made, I got 5 minutes to work with. So I'm going to give you 5 exercises. You're going to do 1, minute 1, minute 2, minute 3, minute 4. All right, here we go. Minute 1, right? Start your clock. Here we go. I want arm swings. You're like that? Yes, I'm like this. Get some blood flowing in those arms. Move them around a little bit. You've been in one position all night. You're going to do this for a full minute. Minute number 2, we're squatting or sitting down in a chair. That's it. I'm just squatting nice and easy for a full minute. Wake everything up. Take your time on this first round for a full minute. Minute number 3, coffee's starting to brew. I got push-ups. I'm going to go up against the counter. Feel free to go on the ground or on the counter. And if this is really hard for you, you can go up against a wall and push off. Remember, it's early in the morning. You're just waking up. Number 4, let's work some abs. I'm going to do some claps under my knee. I do this for a full minute, right? I'm crunching down. Knee up, crunch in. Clap, clap, that's minute 4. And number 5, again, back on the countertop, I'm going to kick a leg up, alternating, kick a leg up. 5 minutes, guess what? Coffee is done. Now say we're going to make some breakfast, right? So I'm going to take a piece of toast, sourdough, throw it in here. Let me start it. I started it. We're going to do that whole thing again. The 5 minutes, right? Because look what it says. 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Minute 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now I want an egg, right? Got to have a little protein. Woo! Can't believe that worked. Now I go and do the same thing again. 5 minutes. I got coffee. I got toast. I got an egg. I got a 15-minute workout in. And if that's all I do today, I'm completely fine with it. Sometimes I actually get more done on the days that I don't have a lot of time than when I have all day to myself. You can't find time? Make it. That's the key. I just made 15 minutes right here, and I'm well on my way.
All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to have some expert advice on keeping calm and carrying on during the almost here holiday season. It gets earlier and earlier every year.
That's making me tense that we're
I
already
know,
talking about
me
holidays.
too. Do you remember last year's flu season? It was pretty brutal. Experts say it was one of the most severe flu seasons in a decade. And we've all been there. You're sick, you have a sore, scratchy throat, aches, fever, chills, and upset stomach. The good news is there is still time to prepare for this coming flu and cold season. There's a product that promises to be a total game changer. And right now, let's bring in Peter Galuli, the CEO of the Wellness Company and the brains behind this emergency medical kit. Now, this isn't just a first aid kit. It comes stocked with prescription medications to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses. So there's no more waiting to see your doctor, sitting in a crowded urgent care, and lines at the pharmacy. Your prescriptions are right there in your medical emergency kit. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us about the inspiration behind deciding on these medical emergency kits.
Yeah, during COVID, we saw millions of Americans be unprepared, not only for the pandemic, but for basic medical needs. And like you said, the cold and flu, which is always lurking in the background. So we really wanted to equip Americans, and we believe it's our own personal responsibility to take care of our own health. So we wanted Americans to have all these life-saving critical medications in their own medicine cabinet so that when they wake up with a sore throat, a runny nose, they can treat those symptoms on demand when they're most likely to get better fast, rather than laying in bed for days and days and hoping that they can ride it out.
Yeah, that's the ironic part is that, you know you should go see a doctor, but you feel so ill that you just don't want to get out of bed.
Exactly. No one wants to waste PTO being sick.
Do you need a prescription to get the kits?
You do. We have a 50-state telemedicine network that will prescribe these medications to you in your own name, and they're dispensed from our own pharmacy here located in the United States. So you're not worried about buying medications from some shady source online. All of these are legitimate medications that are dispensed by a real doctor who's licensed and will listen to your needs.
A lot of doctors say the reason that these medications are prescription is because they need to assess you before you take them. What do doctors say? What is their reaction to these medical emergency kits?
The reaction has actually been largely positive. I think it's a really new concept that we're bringing to the market. All of these kits are prescriptions. So you actually are talking to a doctor when you receive the kit. And we give you a full guidebook within the kit to help you self-diagnose and know how to safely use the medication in case you can't get on the phone with one of our doctors. But we feel it's so important that you have these things because, look, having the medications on hand that same day can make all the difference.
That's very true. How do folks order their medical emergency kit?
It's very easy. Go to twc.health or urgentcarekit.com/CA. That's going to bring you to the Wellness Company. You simply check out with the kit, then fill out a brief questionnaire, and our doctors will be in touch to prescribe your medication.
Let's say you have this, in case of a medical emergency, how long can you keep those medications around?
It's a great question and one we get all the time. The medication typically expire in 12 months, but you can look at the FDA's own shelf life extension program and see that dry medications such as these retain potency for 5 or more years. And if you use a medication in your emergency kit, you can order replenishment and get that medication refilled so you have a full kit on hand.
Oh, that's wonderful. All right. Well, Peter Galuli, thank you so much for joining us. People can go to urgentcarekit.com/CA, the promo code CA, urgentcarekit.com/CA. Thanks for being with us.
All right, Swiftie time, a clean sweep for Taylor Swift's Life of a Showgirl. All 12 songs from her latest album are on the Billboard Hot 100 charts, and they occupy, yes, the top 12 slots. That marks the first time any album has ever had every one of its songs take over the chart's top spots without interruption in the history of the Hot 100 going back to the 50s. She broke her own record. Swift had previously become the first and only artist to occupy all 10 spots in the top 10 of the Hot 100, and she did it twice with Midnights and the Tortured Poets Department.
So which is the top track?
Well, The Fate of Ophelia, my personal favorite on the album,
one.
tops the charts. It came in with 92.5 million official U.S. streams per Billboard. I love that song. Yours is what?
I mean, a tongue-in-cheek. My daughter and I think that Wood is funny because she makes all these mentions of her, of
Travis
her
Kelce
and his podcast and and all of that type of stuff. But Casey Kasem would be very bored, right? He just keep
Oh my
listing
God,
the same
you're right.
person over and over, but he'd find a way.
The kids have no idea who you're talking about.
They do not.
Casey Kasem.
not.
The album is just, I think it's terrific. I was surprised to hear so much blowback from some sectors. It is really an enjoyable. The interesting part about it, though, have you seen the people that have matched it up with other artists' background music when it appears to emulate?
Yes, that's what my daughter was talking about. She was.
Yeah, that's interesting.
All right. Guys, it's hard to believe, but the holiday season is fast approaching. That means more eating, more shopping, more going out, less time for exercising. Here to tell us about health and wellness during the holidays, Andrea Marcellus. She's the founder and CEO of And Life. She's also the creator of the Shape Up Body and Mind program. Thanks for being here, Andrea. We appreciate it. Let's start with our favorite topic here at the diner, and that has to be food. And we understand you went to Trader Joe's to show us some healthy choices for the holidays. What are you recommending?
I'm always at Trader Joe's, and that's on my social media channels. You can always find healthy little special treats at Trader Joe's and things like that, because they're generally making things that are having fewer additives, and you can check out my social channels for all sorts of suggestions of swaps of things you might normally have and a better choice.
Yeah. That actually is wonderful about Trader Joe's. You can get lost in that store, finding really neat and healthy options. Also, though, you got to move around the holidays. We never want to do that. It gets very easy to skip a gym visit or have people over so you don't get to do your normal routine, whether it's walking or doing anything else. How do you make sure you make time for that during the holidays?
Yeah, so, we're just socializing more and there's more added on to our schedule. So 5-minute workout bursts really work. And so what I would do is I ask my clients to set aside time, 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the afternoon as a transition before the evening, and just break it up that way. So maybe you're just doing something for your upper body with weights in the morning while you're getting ready, in your pajamas, and you can do, just a minute of squats here and there or anything. Jenna, her suggestions of just short little exercises, but on a timer, 1 minute at a time, but even 5 minutes a day, if you're consistent, will really work. And the biggest thing is to stand more. Get a standing desk, work at your kitchen counter if you work from home, but just find activities. If you fold laundry, stand to do it. If you're scrolling, make a rule that for the rest of the year, if you're just going to scroll, stand to scroll, and it'll make a huge difference.
And if you have to take a call, take it on a walk. I do that often. It actually helps me clear my head. But I want to get back to those short exercise spurts. So you're saying 6 5-minute routines throughout the day is as effective as, say, a 30-minute straight?
I'm saying 2. 10 minutes a day consistently is going to beat I went to the gym for 3 times this week for an hour. It is about life activity. And one of the keys is after you eat, like say a big meal after dinner every night, but certainly after Thanksgiving dinner or, anytime, Halloween, if you eat some candy, walk right after that, or just do 2 minutes of squats or something. You want your muscles working to pull that sugar out of your bloodstream as fast as possible and improve insulin sensitivity. What we're trying to do is lower our baseline cortisol levels, our baseline glucose, levels, and that's going to help a lot. Movement.
So after that big turkey dinner and you just want to take a nap because you overindulged maybe, or not at Thanksgiving, but maybe after a big party, what's the best way to bounce back from that?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I just want to give you one suggestion at that dinner. I have this thing I call the rule of awesome. And when you're looking at all the foods, believe it or not, lean into those social foods, really enjoy them. It's the one time of year, I talk about eating for your soul instead of for your goal. Embrace the fact that there's all sorts of delicious foods. Eat those first. And the ones that are, really just part of the holiday season, but stop eating when you're satisfied versus when you're full. Don't overfill yourself, but give yourself the most pleasing foods first, right? And then the second thing is use the rule of awesome. So that is, if it's not awesome, don't do it. That's the litmus test. So if you're eating a brownie and it's not the best, most awesome brownie, then put it away for later. But you're giving yourself permission.
I love that.
You want to take a permission-based approach to the holiday. We want to bond with people over food. It's stress relieving. And we don't want to eliminate anything. That just creates anxiety that makes you want to go and eat everything that's not nailed down. So by approaching the holidays with a sense of permission, rule of awesome, stop eating when you're satisfied, not over full.
But if your host or hostess baked the brownie, you don't want to say, this is an awesome brownie.
No, do not say that.
Napkin.
Napkin. Did not say that. But, it's so funny. I still remember, like, the Thanksgiving. So you'd spend all this time preparing it. It'd be eaten very quickly. Then you spend all of this time cleaning it up.
2 days cooking and 30 minutes eating.
Exactly. But doesn't turkey put you to sleep? I mean, right? I mean, it's impossible to walk after eating turkey.
It has tryptophan in it for sure. That will activate rest and digest. But it's really important. There is a period of time between the table and the couch. I'm just encouraging you before you sit, even as you're sitting, sit, stand up, sit, stand up. That's a spot.
Yeah.
I don't know how to get it in, but if you can just encourage yourself, take the family, take yourself, just go around the block. But this is an everyday strategy. If you kind of get used to moving a little before you just kind of collapse in front of the TV, it makes a massive difference in your overall health and well-being.
Is there a place we can watch videos of you during the holidays so we can remind ourselves what to do? Where do we go?
100%. You can find all those foods I recommend, all those swaps. Andrea Marcellus is my name, and you can just look it up on Instagram or Andrea Marcellus Official on TikTok, and I am full of helpful suggestions.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Andrea.
Good tips. If you can do anything for 5 minutes, right? I mean, you can pretty much do almost anything for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I like that rule of awesome, though.
Rule of awesome
isn't great.
Not just for eating. That is life, man.
Yes.
I mean, she just solved life. And there's something that's not awesome, don't do it.
Just stop it in its tracks.
This has been awesome today with all of you guys right here.
Been.
And thanks to you at home. If you want to connect with us, you can download the best of Connecting America each day, wherever you get your podcast. Just type in Connecting America in that search bar and you'll find us there. And we're all over social media too. Have a great Thursday, everybody. We'll see you here tomorrow.
Because it was awesome. We'll come back tomorrow.
Awesome.